Well, our big focus, Lebanese authorities have announced that Israeli strikes killed 37 people in the past 24 hours. And since late on Thursday evening, attacks on Beirut appear to have intensified, with a source close to Hezbollah informing foreign media that Israel had conducted 11 consecutive strikes on the group's stronghold in the capital south, in one of the most violent raids since Israel intensified its bombardment campaign last week. According to Israeli media, Hashem Saifuddin, the presumed next leader of Hezbollah, was the target of Israeli airstrikes on the southern suburbs of Beirut, but Hezbollah has not commented on the claims yet. Meanwhile, the head of the World Health Organization has called for the urgent facilitation of flights to deliver health supplies to Lebanon, saying medical supplies cannot be delivered due to the almost complete closure of Beirut's airport. Meanwhile, the risk of an escalating war between Israel and Iran is testing the global market's faith that crude oil prices would be insulated from a widening of hostilities across the Middle East. We have a reaction lined up for you from the US President. Listen in to what Joe Biden had to say.
How confident are you that a full-out, all-out war can be averted in the Middle East?
How confident it's not going to rain? Look, I don't believe there's going to be an all-out war. I think we can avoid it, but there's a lot to do yet. Will there be a...
And for further clarity, we have with us Middle East expert Reza Khanzadeh. Thank you so much, Reza, as always, for making time for us. We are now reading reports that Israel is likely eyeing Iran's oil and nuclear facilities as it determines its response to Tehran's missile attack. Do you believe Tehran is likely hoping there will be some restraint at this stage, Reza?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I do. I do believe that Iran is hopeful that there will be some restraint, but they're also a pragmatic, regime. The Islamic Republic is very pragmatic, and they understand the actors at play, and they do understand Israel and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and what kind of strategy he's been trying to piece together for the entirety of his political career, which has been to dismantle, if not destroy, Iran's nuclear facilities, which are in Natanz, Isfahan, Tehran, and many miles underground, under mountains. So even if those attacks, which I do believe, as far as the reporting and who I've spoken with so far, it does seem that Israel wants to attack Iran's nuclear facilities.
Right.
Now, as far as the oil facilities, I doubt that will happen for a whole host of reasons, because that will have implications throughout the entire world with oil exports and costs. Just with Joe Biden making the comment, President Biden of the United States making that comment just earlier today, I think 5% increase in oil prices. But as far as the nuclear facilities, absolutely, that is a prime target for Israel. But history has shown us, even Israel's own military experts have said those types of attacks will have minimal impact on really damaging Iran's nuclear facility.
But do you agree with the assessment that Israel is in a position to start a war with Iran and drag the United States into it, but is in no position to end that war?
Yeah, that is an accurate assessment. We've seen time and time again how essentially the United States, Washington, D.C., and not just President Joe Biden, previous administrations within Washington, D.C., more or less drawing these quote-unquote red lines when it comes to trying to persuade Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu not to do certain things in the Middle East, whether it be assassinations, bombings, attacks, and yet every time the U.S. president or Washington, D.C. tells Israel not to do something, Israel goes ahead and does it anyways, and there's no consequence from that. The U.S. still bankrolls Israel's military capabilities, and they still allow Israel to harass and bombard and essentially destroy Gaza and what's left of the West Bank as well. But then to end the war, like you said, it would require really almost every country within the Middle East, all the Arab countries in the Middle East would have to step in order for that war to end. But like you said, Israel can easily start it, and no one's going to stop them, because the only country that can stop them is the United States, and they're not going to do that. So it seems like where we're headed right now is almost to a point of no return, because like I said, it's really up to the United States.
Reza, is it fair to say that Iran and Israel are emerging as the two main great power rivals in the region, and is the rest of the region basically bystanders right now?
I would say so, yeah. But it's a bit more complicated than that as well, which would take up a lot more time than we have on the show right now. But the short answer is yes. As far as the bystanders are concerned, we just seen that Iran's President Pezeshkian having a meeting with his counterparts in Qatar. Yes. They just normalized relationship with Saudi Arabia recently. So even though we may consider these Gulf and Arab states bystanders, they still play a significant role in trying to de-escalate this tension between these two, I guess, superpowers, if you want to call them, within the region. But essentially, if you take away the just blind support from Washington, D.C. away from Israel, Israel is not a superpower in that region. It's really the United States. But having that tension there and having those, quote unquote, bystanders, especially those countries that are considered the flyover countries, right? The countries in between, geographically in between Israel and Iran, because as these two nations, as Israel and Iran continue to bomb each other, they have to fly those projectiles and missiles and ballistic missiles and drones and what have you over these sovereign airspaces, which is Iraq and Jordan and Lebanon and I think parts of Syria as well. So they're not really just bystanders, but at the moment they're kind of playing both sides, if you will, because genuinely no one in the Middle East, probably other than Benjamin Netanyahu, wants a war in this region.
Absolutely, that's something we've been hearing as well from many analysts like you. But thank you so much, Reza, for joining us with your viewpoint and your perspective. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates regarding this escalating conflict.